This programme contains graphic recreations of scenes of historic brutality, including torture and hangings, which may distress some viewers. Matthew Hopkins and John Stern, two men with no legal training whatsoever, had been given a warrant to interrogate suspected witch Elizabeth Clark. Hopkins and Stern's warrant restricted them to operating within the law, which excluded torture. So to get what they needed, they would have to be creative. Elizabeth Clark was tied to a chair and deprived of sleep. In the 17th century, sleep deprivation by the thinnest of margins was legal. On the third day, Hopkins and Stern paid her a visit. It was the first time Hopkins had come face to face with Elizabeth.
Do you know who I am, old woman? I'm your confessor. What sins have you committed in his name? Continue.
Hopkins was never going to give up.
Stop. Please stop.
Talk then, old woman. In what form did the devil come to you?
He was a tall, proper, black-haired gentleman. A properer man than you yourself. Come to me 3 or 4 times in a week. To my bedchamber. And go to bed with me.
And what Elizabeth did next doomed many more victims to follow her. She said that she was part of a coven. There were more witches out there for Hopkins to hunt down.
Clark was apprehended and searched.
And found upon her 3 teats. So upon command from the justice, they kept her from sleep 2 or 3 nights. Immediately after this witch confesses several other witches.
And Hopkins had a secret weapon to convict the rest of the coven. Her name was Rebecca West. He had singled her out in jail and offered her freedom if she gave evidence against the others. The alternative was conviction and death. So unsurprisingly, she accepted.
We came to the house where there were 5 witches. They commanded their spirits, some to kill a man's horse, some to lame a cow, lame a child.
Rebecca's testimony sealed the fate of the accused women.
Culpabilis o non culpabilis.
Culpabilis!
15 of the accused, including Elizabeth Clark, were found guilty and sentenced to death. Hopkins was victorious. It was the largest number of convictions in a single witch trial in English history. Matthew Hopkins' career as a freelance witch hunter had been a spectacular success.
I'm your confessor.
In just 2 years,
Search him.
he'd been responsible for the torture and execution of hundreds of accused witches. But this success would ultimately bring him down.
John
John Gall was a Puritan preacher here in the village of Great Staunton. He hated everything that Matthew Hopkins stood for. And when he heard that the Witchfinder General was planning to come to his parish, he began to preach openly against him. It was risky for a lowly priest to take on the superstar status of Hopkins, but Gall was too angry to care.
Before he discovers what?
He accused Hopkins of incompetence and self-interest. Hopkins' response to Gall's sermons was to go on the attack. But Hopkins was being overconfident. Gall wasn't intimidated. Instead, he went public. This is a copy of the book that John Gall wrote. It's called Select Cases of Conscience Touching Witches and Witchcraft. And in it, he says that Hopkins is just choosing easy targets. He says, every old woman with a wrinkled face, a furrowed brow, a hairy lip, a gobber tooth, a squint eye, a squeaking voice, or a scolding tongue, and a dog or cat by her side, is not only suspected, but pronounced for a witch. Gall went on to say that Hopkins had lucratory skill, which is to say the whole thing was a money-making scheme, that the Witchfinder had no special skill or ability and was a job that Hopkins had simply invented. It was a pretty damning attack. When Gall's book was published, it caught the attention of a group of influential Norfolk gentlemen. When they read it, they were outraged. In spring 1647, they went into open court in Norwich to present their objections to visiting Westminster judges.
They must be tortured. Make them say anything, which is a way to tame a wild colt. Besides this unnatural watching, they were extraordinarily walked till their feet were blistered, and so through that cruelty, forced to confess.
This is an original copy of Matthew Hopkins' pamphlet. It's called The Discovery of Witches, and in it he prints the allegations made by the Norfolk gentleman against him, alongside his responses. This one says, all that the Witchfinder doth is to fleece the country of their money.
Therefore he rides, goes to towns to have employment, promises them fair promises, but it maybe doth nothing for it.
Hopkins denies everything.
I demand but 20 shillings a town. And that is the great sum it takes me to maintain a company with 3 horses.
We know from the surviving financial records that Hopkins was lying. He was routinely paid far more than 20 shillings. But the most astonishing thing about this book is that he reprints accusations of illegal torture. There have been an abominable, inhumane and unmerciful trial of these poor creatures by tying them and heaving them into the water, a trial not allowable by law or conscience, and I would fain know the reasons for that. Hopkins justified his use of torture by quoting King James's book, Demonology. King James, in his Demonology, saith, it is a certain rule, for saith he, witches deny their baptism when they covenant with the devil. So Hopkins' justification was that James, a king who had been dead for 22 years, had once approved of swimming witches. This was no kind of legal defence. Hopkins failed to appreciate the danger of publicising the accusations of illegal torture and of fleecing the public. Demand for his skills evaporated. The Witchfinder General had hunted his last witch. We'll never know if Hopkins would have ended up in court for breaking the law, because fate intervened first. On Thursday, the 12th of August, 1647, in the village where his spectacularly bloody career began barely 2 years earlier, Hopkins died.